The Nokia 8.3 5G is a reasonably solid device that is massively let down by its release timing, but let's figure out why in our full review. Thanks for watching 95 Google here on YouTube. Remember to thumbs up, hit subscribe, and then tap the bell icon to be among the first to watch our upcoming videos. So if you didn't know, the Nokia 8.3 5G was announced back in March 2020. Had it hit the market then, it would probably have been a far more enticing smartphone, at least from the outset. It's also not hard to escape that this is the smartphone that 007 will be using in the upcoming No Time to Die movie, which coincidentally suffered a delay to the silver screen. Unlike Daniel Craig's bow as the quintessentially British agent though, we're not sure the Nokia 8.3 5G will fare quite as well under scrutiny. The recipe here is familiar, but it was much fresher when it was announced almost 6 months ago. In terms of Nokia's 2020 smartphone lineup, this is probably the flagship from the Finnish firm, even though they haven't outright stated so. And I must admit, I was shocked at how large the Nokia 8.3 5G is in the hand. There is a heck of a lot of smartphone to contend with here. It's pretty hefty too at 227 grams. There's a sizable 6.81 inch display at the front, but we'll discuss that more in a moment. Maybe to help your hand from having to stretch up, there is no rear fingerprint scanner on the Nokia 8.3 5G. Instead, the Finnish firm has slapped a side-mounted capacitive fingerprint reader within the power button. I don't mind when firms do this, but I do think by doing so, this sometimes means that the phone is immediately catered towards right-handed people, and I say that as stretching around with your left hand to unlock the phone isn't exactly the most comfortable, even more so with such a large phone. That said, it is a fast sensor though, and it also includes the ability to swipe down or up to access the notification shade, which is a nice touch. Around back of the Nokia 8.3 5G, the design is a strange hybrid of previous devices. The circular camera module has hints of the Nokia 5.3, while the glossy two-tone polar night finish glints various hues of deep blue and feels like an homage to the Nokia 9 PureView from 2018 to an extent. Initially, I actually thought the rear panel was made of plastic, but it is in fact made of Gorilla Glass. After learning this, I felt more inclined to keep using the phone without a case, something that isn't always a priority with glass sandwich style devices, and adding a case would add extra bulk to an even already large smartphone. Another notable is that the 3.5mm headphone port is also included here. It's a rarity to see the audio socket on devices nowadays, and it's made all the sweeter as it's in the vastly superior downward facing position alongside the USB-C charge port and mono speaker. As for the display, the 6.81 inch IPS LCD display at this sort of price point isn't that much or too much of a disappointment, but given the competition offering AMOLED panels elsewhere, it might be a bit of an oversight from Nokia. I could have been a little bit more forgiving if the LCD panel was a high refresh rate panel, but alas, you're stuck with 60Hz. Of course, this isn't a complete deal breaker, but competition is fierce in 2020 and it would have helped elevate the Nokia 8.3 5G above some of the chasing pack. I do like that it is completely flat though, which does help with interactions and eliminates phantom touches on such a large panel. One thing that really needs to change is the embossed Nokia logo on the chin of just about every Nokia phone in existence though. I think it's a real design throwback and a relic that doesn't really needlessly need to cheapen the look of an otherwise reasonable LCD display. In terms of software, my actual biggest gripe with the clean Android One experience on the Nokia 8.3 5G is that this device has actually shipped with Android 10. Not that there is much to hate about Android 10 that is. The Android 11 update is set to roll out soon, but it would have been much better to come straight out of the box, especially that this phone was delayed. Everything though is fast and fluid thanks to the Qualcomm Snapdragon 765G and either 6 or 8GB of RAM. At no point did I see or notice any major lag. The fact that Nokia's flavour of Android is so clean means that it works very much in its favour with regard to everyday performance. Apps load quickly, switching and swiping between open applications is pretty quick and painless, plus there is some grunt for gaming should you need it. Of course, the Snapdragon 765G isn't exactly a powerhouse chipset, but it is very capable. Just how it ages is another question, but as long as you don't play tons of 3D games at their highest graphical settings, the Nokia 8.3 5G is more than good enough for daily usage. It's also worth noting there are literally only 2 pre-installed Nokia branded apps out of the box, but one negative is that Netflix and Amazon are also bundled in there too. However, not having to uninstall or change any default apps right out of the box is a huge deal. It's pixel light if you will, and it's one of the major reasons that Nokia's resurrection in recent years has been pretty well received. Another bonus is that this device is also guaranteed all major Android upgrades within the next 2 years, but due to the delayed release cycle though, the Nokia 8.3 5G will only be upgraded as far as Android 12, which is a little disappointing, but you will get security updates for a further year for a total of 3 years of overall support. And because the internals are effectively identical to the Pixel 4a 5G and the Pixel 5, I'd wager that it would match the Google device stride for stride. Save the better animations, I actually haven't been able to notice any major differences day to day on the Nokia 8.3 5G to that of my Pixel 5. That's even more impressive when you consider the Gulfin OS version, although that is admittedly small. Let's talk cameras then, as the Zeiss branded quad camera setup on the Nokia 8.3 5G is a bit of a by the numbers affair for a smartphone within its price range. It comes with a 64 megapixel main sensor, 12 megapixel ultra wide angle lens, 2 megapixel macro camera and 2 megapixel depth sensor. I have to say that the camera setup is just okay. When using the main 64 megapixel wide lens in auto mode, you get crisp detailed 16 megapixel shots with reasonable dynamic range and solid colours. Most are perfectly fine, but at no point did I feel like the Nokia 8.3 5G camera wowed me in any way. When switching lenses, the quality drops off quite significantly too. The ultra wide angle lens produces shots that are far too soft for my own liking, plus the white balance does seem to shift a little bit when switching. It's nice to be able to get a slightly wider field of view, but I would suggest opting to use this mode sparingly. When lighting does become tricky, there is a dedicated night mode within the default camera app. It's decent enough for giving low light scenes a bit more exposure, but it pales in comparison to other rival offerings. I'd even say that the mostly poor nightscape mode from OnePlus devices actually fares better, and I didn't think I'd say that. At 4500 mAh, I had high hopes for the Nokia 8.3 5G battery, but it didn't quite reach my lofty ambitions. All-day usage is still very easily achieved, but I noticed higher than average battery drain when I left unplugged overnight. I regularly saw 5 to 6 hours of screen on time, which is more than enough for what I'd personally call a heavy day of usage. Understandably though, that might not be good enough for some people out there. It certainly wouldn't be good enough for James Bond, for whom this phone is intrinsically linked with. It is a solid enough battery, but could be a lot better given the substantial cell packed inside. The 18-watt charge speeds are, like the Pixel series, towards the low end. To go from 0 to 100% took around an hour and 40 minutes. As you'd expect, there is no option to wirelessly charge the 8.3 though. All in all, I can't help but think if the Nokia 8.3 5G hit store shelves a little earlier and with a marginally low price tag, then it would have been a much better overall buy. The device comes with the same core hardware blueprint as the Pixel 4a 5G and the Pixel 5, with the closest software experience to the latest 2020 flagship Google phones. In theory, that should have been a really big win. Realistically though, it's a harder sell at its proposed $699 US price that is relying a little too heavily on the James Bond bandwagon, especially with some notable corner cutting that isn't quite as pronounced on Google's late 2020 flagships. In Europe, you've also got to contend with the cheaper OnePlus Nord. It offers more or less the exact same experience at around $150 less. In isolation, the Nokia 8.3 5G is a very good smartphone with a few notable hardware missteps. One bonus is that it is set to receive Android 11 very soon, and it also comes with the closest software experience to the Google Pixel series. But with the Pixel 4a 5G coming in at $499 in the US, I think that phone is a way better purchase. Although even so, Nokia enthusiasts will be very happy with this phone, as it is overall a solid smartphone, just released at the wrong time. With all that said though, if you have any questions about this device, pop them down in the comments section below, and we'll do our best to answer as many as possible. But until next time, this is Damien with 95Google saying thanks for watching, and I will speak to you later.